What's up, everybody? I'm whooping long COVID. Feeling okay today. Thought I'd try to make another video for you guys. Today we're going to talk about cabbage juice. So there's a lot of stuff out there, and it runs the gamut from, let's call it snake oil salesman stuff to FDA approved stuff and a bunch of stuff in the middle. And I'm kind of willing to try anything. I'll try anything to just not have to deal with this soul crushing virus. But when I do, I want to sort of evaluate, what are the chances that this works? I also do like an economic analysis too. Like if it costs $10 and there's no side effects, I'll do it. If it costs $10,000 and there's a bunch of side effects, I'm less likely to do it. So the first thing I'll do is I'll look at what's the science say. And in that, I don't mean I'm jumping on a subreddit and listening to some jamoke somewhere who fancies himself an amateur virologist. Like I'm going to look for medical papers, published medical papers in respectable journals. And in that spectrum, you sort of have papers that start with, the methodology is suspect. The data seems to not have been collected in a bias-free manner. And the conclusions tend to be buy this particular product, and it's published in a journal that you've never heard of, right? So that's sort of one side of the spectrum. Those are pretty easy to spot. And, having read enough of these by now, like you can kind of spot them by the first paragraph. On the other side of the spectrum is you have like the National Institute of Health. And so if they're publishing something, like 27 different people looked at it. It passed through all these gates to get to publication. The methodology is going to be scientifically sound. The data is going to have been collected in a bias-free manner. And then there's a bunch of stuff in between. And so I'm always out there looking for stuff. And then once I look at the science, and sometimes I'll even recalculate the data myself to see if I reach the same conclusions. And that's because I'm a nerd like that. And then the next thing I'll do is I'll say, like, does it make sense? Does it make sense to me that I don't know, if you have POTS in your legs because their blood's pooling down there, that compression therapy should squeeze it up. I mean, that makes sense. Let's give it a go. Let's try it out and see what happens. So I'm talking to one of my doctors, and he offhandedly mentions, have you thought about trying cabbage juice? And I was like, no. And ordinarily I would have dismissed it as kind of snake oil stuff, but this came from a doctor who specializes in long COVID. And so I was like, okay, let me go back and take a look at this and see what I can find. And so the first thing that I found was a paper from the National Institute of Health, right? It's like the highest medical authority in the US, where they evaluated cruciferous vegetables or they evaluated the effects of different types of vegetables on long COVID. And they concluded that there does seem to be some scientific evidence, and they specifically called out cabbage. So I'm like, okay, so I did a little bit more research, and then I found another paper that was not peer reviewed, which isn't necessarily the end of the world, and from a thing I never heard of, but it seemed kind of reasonably legit. And what they did was they looked at the effects of diet on COVID mortality rates. And this is actually like in the heart of the pandemic. They looked at this. And what they concluded was they found a direct link to there were lower COVID mortality rates in countries where cabbage was a higher percentage of the diet. And then I read another paper where this was also an NIH paper, I think, where they were trying to find the healthiest foods in the world, and they discovered that kimchi was among the top 5. And kimchi is mostly cabbage. It's not all cabbage. It's kind of a hodgepodge of whatever's lying around, but it's mostly cabbage, and it's pickled, so it's fermented. So now I have like 3 different data sources. And so I started thinking about like, okay, what are we, how would this work? And I think there's demonstrable scientific evidence that fermented food is good for your gut. And as a guy who had to have his colon removed because of fucking long COVID, I can tell you I have gut issues. So that does kind of make sense to me. And also cabbage is a cruciferous vegetable, which is high in certain antioxidants, but you got to eat a bunch of it. You know what else has antioxidants? Anthocyanins in wine. And I'd much rather drink a glass of Pinot Noir than, drink a bunch of cabbage water just to get antioxidant benefits. But it's sort of, that makes sense to me. So I started looking into like, what are the different types? And you have kind of basic cabbage water. And cabbage water would be water that's left over after you've prepared some cabbage. Either you boiled some cabbage or maybe you fermented some cabbage and you have some brine left over. And it turns out this has been used as a health remedy going back years. And I always feel like there's always a thread of truth to some of these old folk remedies, because back then they were poor, they didn't have resources, they didn't have access to medicine. Medicine wasn't advanced, so they sort of figured out what was helpful, and so that sort of they go, okay, all right, there's something to this. Now there's also cabbage juice, and with cabbage juice, what you do is you juice a cabbage, and so it's way more concentrated. But it's less often likely to be fermented. So you're going to pick up more benefits on the antioxidant side rather than the GI side. But it's going to be way more concentrated. So I'm like, well, I'll give this a go. Like, there seems to be enough to it, and it's not that expensive. I bought I think it was a 24 pack of these for like $30. So it's like $1 a piece. Like, what the hell? Give it a go, right? So I got this. I got the juice, not the water, which means it more than likely is not fermented. It is written in Korean, and my Korean is a little rusty, so I can't really tell on the back of the package if it came from fermented cabbage or not. But my sense is probably not if it's juiced. It's probably just they pressed the cabbage down. So I am losing on some of that probiotic benefits, which are of critical importance to me. So I figured I'm going to run through this case and then maybe try to find some prepackaged fermented stuff. But what is it? It's just a little package. It's like a Capri Sun, and you just sort of rip the top off, and then you drink it. This particular one that I got, which is from Terrapic, not that I get any, revenue from Terrapic, just happens to be the one that I bought, is flavored with a little bit of honey, which is good because generally speaking, cabbage juice tastes like you would expect it to. It kind of tastes like somebody squeezed water through a pair of used gym socks and then left it out in the sun to rot for a couple of days. It's pretty bitter, but it's sort of like same thing with wheatgrass. If you've ever done a wheatgrass shot, that's pretty bitter too. And so the concentration seems to be high. Now with this, I've been doing this now for about 3 weeks, is drinking one of these a day. And have I noticed a difference? I don't know that I have. It's not like I, did a packet of this and then oh wow, I feel great. I do still have sort of good days, bad days, and I've started rating those on a scale from A to F so I can get some data to track how I'm feeling day to day and try to correlate that with what I did the day before or that day. So I don't know that I have an opinion as to the utility of this as it relates to long COVID, but it seems harmless. It seems cheap. And so for me, I'm probably going to continue to do it in the short term, just because why not? We'll just throw everything at the wall. There seems to be some science here. It seems to have the potential to have some sort of benefits, and it's not going to hurt me. So I guess key takeaways from today are, if you want to give it a go, give it a go. You're going to have to go down this road of fermented versus non-fermented, and there's clear scientific evidence that the fermented is better. It just seems to be harder to find in a concentrated form. So it looks like you're either going to get higher levels of antioxidants, which are great. We need those right now too because of all the stuff that's going on in our bodies, or higher level of probiotics, lower level of antioxidants, which is gonna be good if you're having GI issues like me. So anyways, that's what's up. Keep on out there kicking ass. We'll get through it. Later, guys.